If we had to divide the world into conflict seekers or conflict avoiders, which camp would you fall into? We are notoriously bad evaluators of our own strengths and characteristics, so this is a tough call. You might be very good at handling conflict at work, but be a total avoider at home. So understanding the tendencies of seekers and avoiders can be a benefit so that you can make good choices in the moment about whether you are seeking or avoiding conflict. If you think you are an avoider, the one question I would get you to ask yourself is, are you letting go of conflict because you're afraid of conflict, or are you letting go because it's best for the situation or the relationship? There are times when it really is the best thing to let go and do nothing. And doing nothing is totally okay as long as it's a conscious choice. If you're an avoider, however, that is going to be your default, not a conscious choice. And if you're a conflict seeker, you might find yourself engaging in every potential disagreement with your partner, and you would benefit from asking yourself, are you leaping into this conflict because you are a seeker, or because this is a conflict that needs to be resolved? Could you be letting go of this? Could you be doing nothing? Whatever type you are in a relationship, it's always smart to ask yourself what the goal is in the situation. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be in the relationship? If your default reaction is going to be to avoid the disagreement, that might not serve the relationship in the best way all of the time. So what is the goal, or what do you want from the disagreement? Is there something you need to be understood about? And what's the best way to serve your relationship needs, even if it means you have to step outside of your comfort zone and your default settings? That means sometimes you have to get into a disagreement or avoid a disagreement because it's best for the relationship. Now, for a lot of seekers, you might be doing it because you want them to know you are right. And for a lot of avoiders, you might be doing it because you want people to like you or to not rock the boat. Neither of those is always going to be what is best for your relationship. Let's start with conflict avoiders. Conflict avoiders will sense that brewing storm of disagreement, and instead of facing it, will sidestep it and hope that it passes. Delaying the inevitable conversation, hoping that time will heal, or hoping maybe even that someone else will jump in and help you. Those who avoid conflict usually do so out of love because they prioritize harmony and peace. But in doing so, they might find that they're suppressing feelings and needs, and it's really, really important that you find a balance of keeping harmony, but also being heard and seen in a relationship. There are two types of avoiders. The first is a self-preservation type. This type of individual avoids conflict because they're scared and afraid. They might have been in a relationship with someone who is unable to take their perspective, making it challenging to resolve issues constructively or to learn how to be in a conflict in a healthy way. Disagreements in the past with such a partner or even a caregiver could have escalated into significant conflicts. So to avoid these really intense confrontations with a previous partner, a loved one, or a caregiver, the self-preservation avoider often sidesteps any form of power struggles. The self-serving avoider avoids conflicts for their own reasons. They might dodge discussions about their own behavior to escape accountability. By not being transparent about their actions, they free themselves from any responsibility. So they might make decisions that are not in the best interest of the relationship and then justify those actions by saying they didn't want to stress the other person out. This is a form of conflict avoidance, right? And it can be really destructive as it evades accountability and communication and breaks trust. Deep down, we all recognize and know the importance of open communication and addressing disagreements. So why do we avoid things like this, especially in romantic relationships with people we care about? The big question here to ask yourself is, what do you feel like you gain from being an avoider? How does it help you? Are you trying to protect your partner's feelings, or are you afraid of the outcome? If so, remember that it's not your job to protect someone from their own feelings, and you might be straining your relationship by trying to protect someone from having a feeling. Sometimes avoiders tend to put their own needs ahead of others. And that means you will have to be in touch with what you need and what you want, which can be incredibly uncomfortable, but it's going to help you much more and help you have productive discussions and ultimately feel closer to your partner. I am asking you to focus on your feelings because feelings have needs attached to them. And perhaps get out of thinking what your partner is thinking, what you imagine, what you think your partner wants or needs or feels. It also means that your thoughts are out of proportion with your feelings. I need you to get in touch with your feelings so that you know what you want, so that you know what you need and how you're feeling. Sometimes we avoid conflict out of a fear that the conversation won't be productive. We worry that the other person won't be able to understand your perspective. And if that's the case, other is out of proportion with self. Other times we convince ourselves that addressing the issue will make things worse, escalate tension, start a nuclear war. But you also might not know that not addressing the situation or the problem allows tension to simmer and build underneath the surface, often making things worse and actually escalating the tension, and sometimes even starting a nuclear war. I would like to help you to recognize your tendencies and your patterns so that you can better navigate challenging moments when you're facing disagreement or conflict. So here's 2 quick ideas for you to think about. Number 1, can you seek feedback from a partner or a friend about how you could have handled things differently? Ultimately, this is what a therapist is for. And one of the things that I do regularly with my clients is help rehearse and practice and give language to people who don't really have the skills or the tools or the language needed to handle conflict well with their partners. I think that insight from other people that you really trust could be helpful in helping you grow and can be enlightening and give you more tools. Now, another perhaps more crazy idea is leaning in towards people who are conflict seekers without the intention of dealing with anything other than exposing yourself to people who are a little more conflict seeking or a little more direct. And the idea there is to push your boundaries, to become comfortable with the discomfort. And again, we're not asking you to dive into specific issues you have with this person. It's more like training yourself to be less anxious around people who otherwise might make you uncomfortable. When you're in a conversation with a conflict seeker and you're a conflict avoider, you do have to step up to the plate a little bit. The seeker is going to want to get through the conversation efficiently and not really care whether they step on your toes or not really caring about your feeling. They want an outcome and they want an answer. So you have to give yourself a pep talk, put on your workout song so that you're more comfortable around very uncomfortable conversations. And you might have to step into some aggression or directness that will make you uncomfortable. So this is a bit like exposure therapy training. It's making yourself more resilient. You can play into a seeker's mentality because conflict seekers want to solve the problem. So get ahead of them and say something like, I know you're probably wanting to find a solution to this, and so do I. So let's jump into what the problem is and what we can do about it. Starting the conversation like this will help them feel understood and that you're on the same page and that you're in this together. If you're an avoider dealing with another avoider, you can say something similar like, hey, I know we both don't like conflicts, but we've got a really difficult topic to discuss. Can we get through this quickly? That might lower their anxiety because you're saying that you don't want this to be a prolonged discussion. You're not starting problems, you're trying to close them. It's often really helpful to ask permission and ask a question like, is that okay with you? Or would you be comfortable if we discuss this?